Pete Fettig here, and we'll track down Jim if we can. I think he was away for a week or two. I was up early this morning working away, and I managed to track down Roger Stone, who'll be on the third hour, at least for the first segment or two. And we did a 3-minute promo of his latest book, which is the Clinton's War on Women, and of course an update on what's going on in the election cycle and the swing toward Trump, which was occurring even before the reactivation of the FBI investigation of the Clinton server scam, and also the investigations on multiple other areas, including the Clinton Foundation, etc., pay to play. So today we're talking with Pete, and what's happening is, while all these things are happening in the election cycle, which is a huge distraction, luckily, was getting down to talking about brass tacks and his actual plans to fix the economy, fix Obamacare, etc., because people are getting their notices today. Did you get your notice, Pete?
Of what?
The Abomination Care.
No.
Everybody's going to get it this week. It's going to be a hell week for Obamacare. In Arizona, it's going up 116%. 20% of Americans have only one plan to select from. That's pretty easy to select if it's only one. But it's pretty horrendous, the rates. Some people are paying up to 1/5 of the median income for a middle-class American. 1/5 of their entire income is on Obamacare, and the deductibles can be anywhere from $10,000 to $14,000, which means you're self-insured until you hit the deductible limit, which is pretty damn ridiculous. So on every front, the middle class is being crushed. On every front, the world economy is teetering toward catastrophe, and I'll just give you a few stats. The Baltic Dry Index is the lowest it's been in over 50 years. The lowest participation in labor has been the lowest since the Second World War. The lowest house ownership has been the lowest since for 50 years. You go on and on, all these things. The trade deficit that America has with foreign powers and foreign governments is in the trillions of dollars per year. There shouldn't be any. It's the most developed country on earth with more patents than anybody else by 90% of the world patents. America should always be a thriving nation. Shouldn't have corporations and building things moved elsewhere. In fact, if we had a power blackout, let's say from a coronal mass ejection or a power surge, let's say from a CME or a hack attack or incoming cyber attack or a nearest space object, we have to actually call up China and beg them to send us parts to fix their power grid. Now, why do I say this? I say, well, first off, you need to be an economic prepper. You're a health prepper if you listen to this program and get off meds, get on nutraceuticals, and get on a better lifestyle, have clean filtered water, etc. Economic prepper, very first and most important step is to be involved with carrot bars. Tell us why, because you're a gold bug too, long before you became a carrot bar guy. Why is carrot bars the best business for people to have on the side?
Well, first and foremost is the fact that it's real money, and this is a way to get affordable real money. You're not spending money; you're actually saving money. You're exchanging fiat currency, which is the paper dollar that's in your pocket, for real value, real intrinsic value. That's something that the dollar doesn't have. I mean, the only reason that dollar even exists and you can go trade it for something at a given store is that you believe and the recipient believes that it has some kind of value, but it doesn't. It's printed literally.
It would be like a caveman picking up rhinoceros poop and calling it valuable when it dried out in the sun, and saying that you string it up like beads, and if you have so much rhinoceros poop, you're really wealthy.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I use a gross analogy, but that's what it is, because in a sense, money, fractional reserve money, really is anti-money, like antimatter. It says on the note, you owe the Fed Reserve X amount of money. In other words, when you have the dollars in your pocket or your bank, you actually owe the Fed Reserve. That's what it says. I mean, people find that hard to believe, but that's the truth, isn't it?
Well, that's the really sad truth is that the Federal Reserve in the United States, and this is true for central banks everywhere, they have really stolen the substance of the people of their own countries. They have quite literally stolen it. In the United States, it's been stolen for over 100 years.
Right.
There hasn't been real money made available to people to use to conduct commerce. And, and they further used the laws of men to outlaw it over the course of this last century. And they have substituted what is you can't call it money. It's currency. It's just it's nothing in this case because it's fiat.
Right. It's pretty weird, isn't it? It's actually kind of bizarre. It's almost like if you were a nuclear physicist in the 25th century and you'd found a mine where you could find antimatter, and people say, "Don't mine that stuff. If you touch it, you blow up. You cease to exist." And unfortunately, that's why we now have the debt bomb that is now not only set up with the regular economy, but with the derivatives economy about 3.5 years ago. They stopped even making money with their funny money derivatives system. And now they're talking about negative interest or bailing in money. And in fact, if they steal all the money for everybody, even wealthy and poor and middle class on the earth, they need several hundred versions of Earth to pay off the current world debt, which means it's unpayable. And they aren't facing that, are they?
That's correct. That's correct. They have, I don't know how I would say it, hoodwinked the
That's a Masonic term, and you're quite correct. You're quite correct.
Mm-hmm.
They've definitely hoodwinked us all. Oh, yeah. Now, when people get involved with carrot bars, and I'm going to show the advantages over any other system. If you were trying to do a multi-level selling, say water filters or food or supplements or whatever, hardware, you'd find, you had to become an expert, and you'd probably have to buy a whole lot of inventory and have it stored in your garage, and it might have an expiry date, so it might just go bad. With this, gold doesn't go bad. You don't have to store it in your garage. You simply introduce it to someone else if they're interested. Then they purchase it themselves, and if you do it consistently for 12 weeks, you start getting free gold. It's just basically a gold saving club. It's a save now, prepare for what I call financial Armageddon later. And there's some other side things developing, kiosks. The K exchange allows you to buy and sell around the world using an exchange system, so it can operate as distant money. Because it's already gold by the gram and fractions of a gram in the notes, you can actually use it to make change. And it's change in real currency. It's not in funny money, anti-money, or Federal Reserve notes, or rubles, or renminbi, or whatever the currency you're talking about. The advantage of this is far superior to antiques, or gold and silver coins, or rubies, or diamonds, or anything else that's transportable, even food, because it's so small in its volume and so light. You can carry quite a bit of currency, let's say, in your pocket, or in your wallet, or in a safety deposit box at home. And the nice thing about it is if you can have this currency, you can have other things. For example, let's say you have a vegetable garden, you grow chickens, or you have medicines or nutraceuticals or whatever. That's good. But you have to have a means of exchange. And this means that you're going to have a means of exchange that won't go poof, because the banks and the Federal Reserve and the International Monetary Fund, the only thing they can do to fix the economy is to steal from us, which means they got to take our gold, which they're not going to be able to get, but they have to devalue the gold versus the currency. What's happening is the actual reverse. Over a period of decades, the currencies are getting less and less valuable versus gold. Gold holds its value over many decades. A gram of gold will buy basically the same number of loaves of bread in 1922 as it does in 2016. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really is. And, that's something that people haven't experienced for such a long time. If you ask the average person, there aren't very many people in the U.S. As a percentage, maybe 3%, 5%, that have actually held real money in their hands. When I say that, I mean gold and silver. They've certainly held dollars, of course, but they haven't held real money. And it's just it's a different feeling. It has weight. You can feel it. It's intrinsic.
Right.
You know that it has value, and that's why people treasure it, and that's why God made it money in the get-go. And I don't want to get lost on Christianity here, but until we repent and change our focus and return to God's money, we're not going to get pretty much anywhere.
Right, and of course, we're finishing up right now Shemitah year, which is a year of wiping out debt. This is another principle that's not being adhered to by our society. As a result, the debt is getting so big it's ready to swallow the entire economy. And one of the things that's happened is the derivatives debt has actually sucked the velocity of credit and the velocity of money down to the level where the real economy is faltering while the stock market looks relatively good. But that's going to go too, because when the domino effect starts to happen and they pull a Jenga stick, the entire economy is going to collapse and people are going to wonder what to do next, aren't they?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You're not going to see your semis delivering goods to your stores anymore. You're going to see empty shelves, and you're going to see all manner of destruction in services and everything else, and people are ill prepared for it these days.
Well, we see already a part of that effect with Obamacare, where 20% of doctors have withdrawn from the exchange networks, which means less services, less providers available. You had 20 different types of bread. Maybe you'll have two kinds of bread, brown bread and white bread. In the future, people don't realize, and the cost will be considerably more in terms of actual currency. So the people aren't really prepared for this. They're not prepared at all. They think money is money. Money will hold its value. The problem is everything's denominated in money. Your pension funds, your house value, a lot of the things that you have bought in the past are going to become less valuable in terms of the relative exchange to things that may be perishable, like food and gasoline and so on. One of the ways you can keep communities going is if you convince all your neighbors and friends you need to save in real currency too. The problem is I think that our government should start really conceiving that maybe carrot bars will be a currency for our government as well. In other words, go back to not just a gold standard, but a gold standard where the actual currency notes have gold in them. So have any of the governments in the world actually considered making carrot bars their national currency?
Well, not that I know of at this point, but that is certainly a direction that carrot bars would like to go, is not to cause a revolt and a fight, but to offer a solution.
Yeah, we've had G. Edward Griffin on, and he said, let have all the currencies do a competition, and may the strongest currency win. And it's my impression that maybe smaller countries can say, hey, maybe we should switch to carrot bars as our currency or an alternative to our current currency, so that as their currency is being devalued, they can buy and sell goods and services around the world at a stable price so that they can still afford to have trade. A good example was, we talked about this maybe 6 months or so ago, people living in places in South America, their currency in the last year and a half is devalued by 50%. So if you're an expat American, you're living in a large city in South America, let's say Venezuela or Brazil, what you're doing, you may be buying trucks or cars or, let's say, farm equipment from a U.S. or U.S. affiliated manufacturer, and you're paying in U.S. dollars and they're delivering it in containers or on big ships. You have to have a margin, but if you don't have a stable currency, you can't have a margin where you can make a profit and stay in business. And this is a real problem where if your currency is being devalued, you can't afford to buy more inventory, can you?
That's right. That's right.
So,
I would like to point out, too, that this isn't a bad news kind of a thing. It's to enhance the lives of anybody that wants to participate, and to save your friends and neighbors and yourself as well, your family. Right.
Now, I tell people, do whatever you're comfortable with. We have people that are millionaires that put a whole lot of money in. One of the things that I heard recently is that I've had several of our people that have bought a lot of carrot bars because they convert a lot of their wealth. They got a notice from, say, the state of California of some kind of use tax. Now, I don't think it's valid. I think when you buy gold, they can't tax you on buying gold, can they?
I don't think they can.
No, they'll try to, though. And remember now, various states will try to do this because they see your ability to have a separate currency that can't be devalued as a challenge to their control of you. Because people have to understand the control of the government of the population to a great extent is through the media and through the currency.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
If they have to keep people relatively poor in order to keep on asking the government to give them handouts. They get handouts by mortgaging the future.
Exactly.
They're saying, I'll reach into your great-grandson's treasury in 2085, and I'll take that money out from the future, and I'll give it to you now. What do you think of that? Well, elect me. That's really what they're doing, isn't it?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's
and people don't get it. They'll say, hey, I don't even know my great-grandson yet. He hasn't even been born for 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's right.
So exactly. They don't understand this, too. They don't understand the mathematics of it. Now, when you have real wealth, you can build up real wealth, and you can pass it on. To me, there should never be an estate tax or death tax. There should be people should be able to build up wealth so they can then create economy. Now, one of the things, a good example is the difference between Hillary Clinton, who's obviously a financial moron. She never developed anything and never had a successful business, except her sale of influence to get $250 million, is the idea you can't raise tax and expect to create new business. You have to have money to invest to create jobs. And if you lower the tax rates, you're going to have more money to create jobs. If you get rid of Obamacare, which has penalties and really high rates for insurance, you're going to be able to create jobs because you're not going to get penalized. So I think Trump is going to win, especially after this latest revelation, even with all the voter fraud. And I think that there's going to be lots of lawsuits because I'm not sure they're going to have a clear answer even on Election Day because there's so much voter fraud. 1.8 million people that are dead that have been voting for sometimes 60 years. 2.8 million people that are actually registered in more than one state. They're encouraging here in California illegals to vote with their driver's license, even though they're completely illegal. They just have drivers because more than half of the driver's licenses that are issued in California for the past 3 years are all for illegal aliens.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't surprise me.
And they almost universally think that they're going to get a free ticket to come in and amnesty with the Democrats that are jumping the immigration line. Some of them really have no business being here because they're involved with MS-13 and other drug gangs. Others basically have no business being here because they're extreme Wahhabist Muslims that want Sharia law and want to terrorize the American population, including other Muslims. So I think Trump's got a big job to clean up this mess. But it's not going to be an easy thing because Hillary Clinton and their crew are still trying to steal the election. So I know, and I've ticked off a few of our listeners, but tough on them. They think that there won't be a pitchfork revolution. I can tell you, I guarantee it, if they shove Hillary in there, we will never, ever, ever submit to a Hillary Clinton horrendous, evil presidency. Pitchfork revolution or whatever, it's not going to happen. Okay? So if that upsets you, call in, and I'll tear a strip off you a yard wide. Because let me tell you, we're not going to get a second chance after the Hildebeest gets in. Welcome back, and so Pete, we have a tremendous opportunity here with Care Bars, and we can be your trainer wheels. Now, I know there have been other networks. In fact, I won't mention specific names right now, but a number of people contacted us. They were introduced to Care Bars, but the network they were in was not dynamic. We're dynamic, aren't we? You guys train both. Pete and Jim have training sessions. We have a lot of videos. We will literally show them how to actually go through their list and contact people with a sizzle call. It's pretty simple. In fact, it's almost embarrassing simple. I found a few people I've done over the last while. You show them once and they go, oh, this is too easy. I'm embarrassed to even ask you to do a second one. So we'll just play the call, and if they're interested, if not, next. And, maybe take their email down and say, well, look, I'll send you information. If you're interested down the road, just contact me. You have to make it what I call a no-pressure, it's more sharing rather than sales, isn't it? You're sharing something that's already valuable. It's like, why wouldn't you want to do this? It's kind of crazy. And it's for everybody. It's retired dentists. It's people in active, bus drivers, stay-at-home moms, people that are in their, already busy with other businesses or doing 2 or 3 part-time jobs. Think of this as not a part-time job, but a job that'll grow. So that it's not dependent on how many hours you put in. Because after a year or 2 of doing this, you're going to have a downline network that's going to be working with and for you, expanding that network, which you're going to get benefits from. It's not time dependent on how many minutes you spend doing a specific job. You don't have to have any equipment at home. You don't have to actually physically do anything. All you're doing is sharing. And your sharing downline is to infinity. That's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, it is. It really is.
Consistency, working deep, it's just giving people the kind of help they need if they say, hey, I want your help to do this and that. Well, fine. Like, for example, I want you to investigate that thing about the use tax thing, if you can get back to me or find out from your upline. Because I had a couple of people that have bought a lot, and it's the state of California. California is a weird place. These grabby Democrats here, think, oh, man, geez, this guy's got money. He's converted to Carat Bar gold. We want some of that. No, you don't have a right to get somebody's gold. If you bought some gold and silver coins, you certainly don't get a part of one of the coins, do you?
Right. Yeah.
No.
You don't.
No, and that's the thing, is you're converting fractional reserve anti-money into real money. That's kind of radical, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Well, being a gold bug, that's kind of. I've been in a gold bug for many years. I've got gold saved up that I bought. It was like $200 an ounce. What I expect to happen is at or after the election time, I think you're going to have some economic earthquakes. And the relative value of currencies, the dollar will probably fall less than other currencies, but it's going to be like that commercial they have on here at Republic Broadcasting. If you're listening to the show, I'm not going to praise you about it word for word. You know that times are changing and the good times are over, and you know that what's coming is going to be catastrophic. And now, it doesn't have to be as catastrophic unless you're not prepped. If you're prepped and you have backup power and you've got food and you've got ammo and you've got medical supplies and so on, and you've told your neighbors and they're all working together as a team, whether it's 2 weeks or 6 weeks or a few months until people start to get their act back together again, it won't be so bad. But the 4th day in, if there's no food or water and you don't have ammo and people are roving around grabbing stuff from other people and there's no economy and there's no means of exchange and people don't accept the dollar or any other currency anymore, it'll be pretty haywire, won't it?
It will. It will.
It'll be like one of those. There's those days that you have, like a Monopoly game with other kids, and you get in. There's a couple of kids in the group that are bigger, and they're bullies, and they don't like the other kids buying hotels or properties, so they start to beat up on the other kids. It's going to get nuts, is what I'm saying. It doesn't need to get nuts. If we collaborate, this is going to be pretty straightforward, won't it?
That's right.
Yeah,
exactly right.
Well, great. We'll be back in a moment. Maybe we can track down Jim Deal. We haven't been able to get him last couple of weeks, but we'll see if we can get Jim to give his input. Coming up today, we're going to have on Hour 3 Roger Stone with his update in his latest book, The Clinton War on Women. His latest book launched September 6th. Update on what's going on in the election cycle and his contacts with the Donald and Tim Alexander. Back in a moment. Going to change the modus just a little bit here. On the world scene, here's what's happening. The Deutsche Bank in Germany, I can hear a lot of noise there. I think your headphones or microphone must be doing something funny. The Deutsche Bank in Germany, they're pushing to cause trillions of dollars of debt to cause a domino effect in the European economy, which will affect the world. We're seeing shark loans in China, where China is, although it's got a 78% growth rate, it's kind of artificially pumped up by more than half the loans in the country are over 20% shark loans. We have in America where the balance of payments and the amount of capital that's coming into America that's monetizing and shoving up the stock market but with the disappearance of jobs from NAFTA in these trade deals, and the ones that, of course, Obama's trying to push through even in his lame duck session. And you know that Tim Kaine, we call him Cocaine because he's such a hyper rabbit when he was interviewing and debating with Mike Pence. That's why his new name, by the way, is Tim Co-Kane, Cocaine. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Right.
And then we have, of course, Hillary Clinton, who is so corrupt. Everything's for sale. Influence for sale. And the thing is, she just shoves it in our face and says, you're not going to prosecute me. I'm Hillary Clinton. I'm the queen. Other people like, General Cartwright, General Four-Star General, he's going to go to prison for lying to the FBI once. And in fact, if you look at the reason why he lied, he might have lied for national security reasons rather than telling the truth because of what he was doing. But Hillary Clinton is above the law. So what it means is that we're probably going to have a Congress that will be most likely Republican. If Hillary does get in, she's going to be prosecuted and she'll be just a temporary president or not ever assume the office. It'll be Tim Cocaine, who's an idiot, and a Jesuit idiot at that. We have policies that they want to bring in terms of interest rates and government-sponsored. Why does the government think it can pick industry like Solyndra, the solar company, and think it's going to make a really good bet and make a lot of jobs? I mean, at one time, does government ever make good investments of our money to make more money and more jobs? Never. How's that? These people are basically economic and developmental morons. Okay, they don't have the capacity to actually generate any new jobs other than to try to dictate to us to take our money and waste it. So, what you got to do is you got to sequester a certain amount of money. I call it the latte plan. Don't buy a latte every day. Maybe buy one a week. And if you save that money, you could buy at least 1 or maybe 2 grams of gold a month. And if you can encourage 2 people per month, personally or downline for each of the people that you've sponsored, in 1 year you've got a multiplicative factor of 2 to the power of 12. That's a lot of people, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
I think 2 to the power of 12 is over 1,000 people.
Uh-huh.
Which means basically, if you just even do the minimum, you can't but help but have a network of people that have heard the message and decide to just do a little tiny bit of saving. The latte plan, I call it. Latte a day will keep the Grinch away. It's interesting during the Hungarian Revolution. I remember talking to one of my friends, and they had the currency, which in Hungary was a really good quality paper. And they said it was really good to keep the winter out in outhouses, to actually block the wind going through the outhouse. But it was not good for anything else. You could take a whole wheelbarrow, just like during the Weimar Revolution 30 years earlier in Germany, to get actually a loaf of bread. In fact, if you went early in the morning, you need a wheelbarrow, and by the afternoon you need a wheelbarrow and a half. In fact, it was real funny. I talked to one of my friends that said, and this was the same situation in Hungary in the 1960s, what they did is dump out the money and steal the wheelbarrow. It was more valuable than the money in the wheelbarrow. So people say, that can't happen again. I said, look, if you have the same circumstances like baking a cake, and you have a bad recipe, you're going to end up with a bad cake that's going to collapse, or something's going to be taste terrible, or it'll make you sick or give you diarrhea. Well, they're still the bakers are still baking the same cakes that they did since the Napoleonic Revolution, and they're still making funny money with a recipe that doesn't work and eventually causes us to all lose our value in the economy. Instead of people accumulating wealth, we should have a growing middle class that has savings. I've heard that half of the adult population over 55 doesn't have $1,000 saved for disaster, let alone 1 year of saved money so that they could, withstand, say, a medical disaster. Less than 10% of the population actually that are retiring have enough money to retire. And when you look at the finances of younger people, it's a lot worse even. That means basically we don't have a sustainable economy. If a disaster of any kind, environmental or otherwise, hits us, we're in a very hard place, aren't we?
That's exactly right.
And that's not the case as always been. Since the early 1982, we had a national food storage plan, so we even had 2 or 3 years of food. Even though it wasn't great food, it was stored food that was preserved, so people wouldn't starve to death. during the Great Depression, which my grandparents were in, my grandfather actually made money during the Depression because he's pretty innovative, but people would come to work around their home and their lands simply to get fed, you know. Nowadays, back then it was something like 75% of the population were within 5 to 10 miles of a farm, so they could always find some way of getting fed. Right now it's less than 3 to 5% are near, and probably only about 0.5% are actually preppers. You know, people that listen to this kind of program is expanding, but, you know, and some of them are just starting preppers. They've got a few supplies, maybe they got a gun, but they aren't financial preppers. They don't realize that, you know, besides getting the right nutraceuticals and getting off drugs and getting their health back and, you know, getting a personal, you know, self-protection with a gun, or like a shotgun or a personal handgun that they with a carry-on permit, they don't realize that if you don't have a means of exchange, you're going to be in a very tough place. And then you need something that's portable. You know, even silver coins. Silver coins are heavy, aren't they? You start to realize that we had some of our people buy product from us with silver, and when they send the silver, it's like, whoa, man, this is heavy. It's not very portable, is it? And then if you get these great big coins, like 1 ounce coins or even tenths of an ounce coins or little, they're so valuable, you can't make change with the darn things. So let's say you took a limo or a taxi from the LAX airport, say to North County, San Diego Vista. You know, it's going to cost you X number of dollars. But if you have a large, valuable coin, even if a tenth of a gram of gold, it now is worth, say, $1,000, because, you know, gold and silver are going to take off in value. You're not going to be able to make change unless you have something like carrot bars. You can just imagine how happy a limo driver would be bringing it from the LAX to North County, San Diego, if you gave him, say, 2 grams of gold, which right now is going to what, about $100 and some dollars?
It's in the 70s. Yeah.
No, I'm saying per gram. Per gram. Let's say 2 grams.
Right.
2 grams is about $140, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he would be, especially if the economy is like, you know, see the dollar dropping day by day. People say, well, that can't happen. It's going to happen. Very likely, if there's a constitutional crisis with Hillary in power and her crazy financial plans, the market's going to respond very negatively to that, aren't they? People need to be prepared for this eventuality that in a week could become reality, where we have a sitting president who's a serial criminal and serial liar, that part of the population are stupid enough and arrogant enough to vote her into power, knowing that the financial crisis will mean she's only in there temporarily until we get Tim Cocaine in there. And he's a moron and doesn't have any financial idea how to actually make an economy work, like Donald Trump and his advisors. The market's going to react very negatively to this, aren't they?
Yep, that's right.
People say, "Oh no, that won't hurt." I said, "You know, you're a moron, and maybe the only thing that'll smarten you up is the Darwin effect, which means you're taken out of the gene pool." People say, "Well, that's very insulting." I said, "Well, maybe it'll wake you up to the reality that raising interest rates to the ceiling and taking away the ability of people that could invest in hiring more people for jobs is a bad thing when you raise interest rates. When you think the government is best to invest in various companies like these solar companies, and we're going to go to alternative energy. I believe in alternative energy, but, you know, for example, and I've postulated this, is a good example. When they're pushing all these solar companies, if your solar power goes out, you don't have power. Now, you might be cheaper to have solar, but if you have no power, that's really bad. All your food, you know, rots. Your air conditioner doesn't work when it's hotter in Hades. What you need is have that, plus maybe have some of that power converted to solar, to hydrogen, and have the hydrogen stored and have a fuel cell. But is the government sponsoring that? Of course not. They don't want to make people independent. Same with healthcare. You know, they say we're going to just do a health savings account, which I think is okay, but it's not a real solution to the healthcare problem. You have to control costs. No more malpractice. No more state licensure. Allow lateral training so people can start off as an army medic and become a surgeon. Allow people to work part-time because they don't have malpractice. They can afford to stay in practice. So if you're a single mom and want to work as a doctor 3 days a week, part-time, half a day, it's your business. Or if you're retired and moved from Alaska to Florida, you don't need to recertify if you're a general surgeon. It's ridiculous. You may need to certify that you're competent to do a specific procedure, which is easy to do in a weekend or, a couple of days. What we have is a stupid system that they're making more stupid and raising costs and interfering with business. Well, this process, unfortunately, could well be in grave jeopardy. Trump has a plan to solve it, but if Hillary gets in, it's going to be catastrophic because she has no judgment. Doesn't just bad judgment, she has no judgment. She puts dogma and her idea, she always seems to think that she's the smartest person in the room. She puts dogma, and even if she was a pilot, even if she looked at her altimeter and was smacking at it and saw the ground coming up, she wouldn't do a correction of her course to actually stop from crashing. In other words, you can see from her previous bad decisions that when disaster struck, it didn't change her pattern or her behavior. And that's what kind of government we're going to get if Hillary gets in. They won't course correct based on the actual experiences they're having or the future disasters they're creating. Now, you are out there as an individual citizen if you don't realize that. And if you don't realize also that even if Trump gets in, he's got a lot of screw-ups to fix. I mean, this celebrity President Trump is going to fix things. The so-called first black president has totally screwed up the economy, race relations, class relations, international trade, and has lost respect, so they wouldn't even bring a ladder over to get him out of the Air Force One jet when he went to this Asia conference. And of course it's because we collaborated to make sure China wasn't part of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, so China was slighted and ticked off at us. What do you expect? This is not a way to have trade relationships with a major power like China. Instead of actually negotiating to have oil and gas from Alaska sold with the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, we go and snub the Chinese and treat them like crap. That's not a smart thing to do, is it? So, where I see things going is if Hillary gets in, it'll be very bad. But if Trump gets in, it's going to be bad too. It's not going to be an easy road, is it? Pete, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
So you can see my point that if Hillary gets in, it'll be triple bad, but it's not going to be great if Trump gets in. He's got a lot of screw-ups to happen. And the globalists are going to try to throw every roadblock to make sure he looks bad. Right? Crash the economy, try to start proxy wars. God knows what they're going to do. They're going to try to do everything they can to make Trump look like, him and his buddies don't know what they're doing. But in fact, most of his policies are pretty darn straightforward. Repatriate money, make it encouraging with lower interest rates to develop new business and expand and hire employees, bring in new technology, buy new equipment and write it off, expand your factories, do not move outside the United States or it's going to be hellishly hard to sell products back in the U.S. market if you do that, like Carrier air conditioning. What could be simpler? Isn't that true? But there are people that are hell-bent supporting the Hildebeest, I call it, who really don't understand this thing, and they're very emotional, illogical, and suicidal in terms of what's going to happen with the economy. That's why I say to people, if you are a supporter of Hillary, you're a doer of evil, you're also financially and morally an idiot. I had a chance. I agree with most of the things of Jim Fetzer, but we started arguing over pro-life issues. And I always get a kick at it when we get non-medical people who think they're an expert in stuff where I'm a medical doctor for 40 years. It's like, no, you do not have a right to an opinion. How's that? And it makes me laugh. Do you ever find your area, like your area, you're a gold bug, and you understand these things, and someone pretends they're a brand new, shiny penny kind of expert, and all of a sudden they're just totally knowledgeable. It makes you laugh, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Well, I'm a quick study. I've been working with financial experts over many years now with my radio shows, and interacting with. I do what I call Vulcan Mind Meld. And what I do is I read all these journals. I get regular things from Gerald Celente and many other financial experts, and I read. And the ultimate conclusion I get is the politicians usually have the anti-Midas touch. When they touch something, it turns into fecal matter. If it's a bad policy, you can guarantee that the politicians will seek to try to find it and make sure they implement it so it causes maximum catastrophe. And then they'll promise you they can pull you out of the catastrophe by mortgaging your future. Well, just look at the logical thing of why would you bring in 550% more people in the country when you can't afford them and you can't vet them. And then when you have terrorism, you're going to have martial law, which means you're going to have a police state, which is, how are you going to police a population of 1/3 billion people? And if she has her way in the next 10 years, will it be over 1 billion people in America? I mean, how crazy is that? We get these dying super cities that are all giant super cities of 20 to 30 million people. That's what's going to happen. Pretty crazy, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's kind of scary, that's for sure.
Yeah, and these people they're hell-bent on shoving this stuff through. I'm looking at a picture of Hillary. Look at her, and she looks like someone who's demented looking out of her van. And she probably had a nappy there because her bed can lay back. I'm thinking, why does this person think that they're fit to be commander-in-chief? Actually, I've got a new term for her. I call her the grifter-in-chief. What do you think of that? Is that a good one? Grifter?
Mm-hmm.
You know what a grifter is, right?
Yeah.
They'll sell everything. They're a criminal. So, if you don't want to be grifted, you better have your own financial prepper plan. Get into Carrot Bars. We'll be back in a moment. If you have questions, call or email. We'll get you involved with the network and support you and make you see. His last call. If you think we're kind of making this up, and the term is often used, it was actually invented many years ago by the CIA to kind of disrespect people, say they're conspiracy theorists. In fact, I saw a commercial on television that had someone who's a conspiracy theorist and they're trying to sell pizza. A conspiracy theorist, number one, can quote regular news items that are published by the AP Newswire, etc. Can quote things that are in the regular audio or video. You can actually hear people's words or see the video of it. Or you can read newsletters of pundits and experts, let's say, on financial issues. You have to understand that we don't need a speculator, be quoted conspiracy theorist, to tell you that if you don't prepare for financial earthquakes, you're going to suffer them. Like if you're living in the fault zone in Italy, where they've suffered several fairly big earthquakes, the biggest in probably 35 years there, it's probably a good idea to move, or to move to a building that's better constructed, not made of little stones that can fall over, that are made 500 or 600 years ago. Now, I remember this when I was a kid. They talked about the three little pigs. There was a piggy that actually had to build a house that could stand the big bad wolf. Well, the big bad wolf is fractional reserve banking. The big bad wolf is we can manipulate the value of your money because it's not real money or value, it's actually anti-money, and we just believe it's money because we've convinced everybody that they can use it for exchange. In fact, give an example, use the term mortgage. You know what the word mortgage means in Latin? It means death grip. So they actually create the money out of thin air by you agreeing that the value of a home, that you're going to now pay that plus the interest compounded, where they create the compound interest out of nothing. Quite a scam, isn't it? So the money and the interest itself are created by the fact you're willing to guarantee to actually create the money and the interest on the money out of thin air by your guaranteeing it. Pretty crazy, isn't it?
It is.
So I call it scamtastic. It's another one of my legalism terms. It's a scam and it's fantastic, so it's scamtastic. Pretty good, eh?
Right, that's right.
Scamtastic. Now, right now, even if the election happens, we're going to have fights for months over voter fraud and Hillary Clinton going to prison. And again, I want to contribute to her orange jumpsuit fund. I think she'll look smashing in a fat suit, orange jumpsuit. I think that she'll look just great in sunglasses in a resort-type prison where she'll stay there for the rest of her days. She'll probably have internet access. Maybe she can write more books. Who knows? Maybe the last days of her life she can actually take her health back. Because right now she doesn't have enough health even to campaign. Maybe she'll actually become a real person, like Pinocchio. We'll call her Hillary Pinocchio. She's so evil, and the way she treats people around her. So what I want people to understand is you need to take control of your financial future. If you're not a financial prepper and considering Carrot Bars as the very best option, you can start to take care of your own financial future. This doesn't require any big investment, doesn't require expertise or storing it in your garage. It just requires you to share it with others and be concerned about their financial future too and help them. And as you help them, you become successful to infinity. That's pretty amazing. If you want our help to get involved with Carrot Bars, do contact us. We'll get you going. And it doesn't matter what country you are or where you live, we can help build a network for you. Thank you, Pete. We will be back in a moment with our Health and Wellness Hour. And Hour 3, Tim Alexander and Roger Stone with a major update on the election and contact with the Donald